as the highlight of our day. We might actually hear what our soul is trying to say. If my infected blood was sent to a place with sophisticated technology that understands the human race, I wonder if then poor diet would be a focus, bad sleeping patterns, lack of exercise, smoking habits, high medication doses, or maybe this technology would identify these things as the symptoms of a society designed to cut our fucking wings.
That's fantastic. What was the name of that poem again?
Wings.
Wings. Have you got another one you could read for us?
I do.
As now, I'm such a bastard. Sneakily, I'd put on my Facebook Live thing, so so you have a live audience right now. Well, we had a live audience anyway, but now they can see you as well. So.
Which one? Maybe not one from my book. I get bored of my stuff.
I do too, actually. I hate reading my. That's why I make shit up on stage all the time, because I've been reading the same stuff for like 10 years. So it's like. Ugh.
All right, I'm going to do one that's a little bit. It's probably the most different one I've ever written, and it was actually in response to a Dirty 30 prompt.
I should explain that for those who don't understand, April is Autism Awareness Month, and it's also Poetry Awareness Month. And the Dirty 30 is that every day in April there are prompts. So I get distracted by everyone who's just tuned in. And so someone who's running on the Facebook page will say, this week we're talking about how to explain war to a child in the West, or your first love, or April Fool's Day, or etc., etc. And so it's actually getting some very interesting stuff. I think it's good for a lot of people who aren't writing a lot. I think it's a good way of pumping, or people who haven't written for a while. It's a good way of pumping the juices a little bit. So
every day is a new prompt, and on this particular day, it was actually quite a complex prompt. We were asked to write a poem about a famous person travelling forward in time and talk about what they had in their luggage.
Cool.
So I wrote about a serial killer.
Fantastic. Oh, yeah, my favourite poet already.
I called it, I Am Not a Monster, I Am You.
Cool.
And it goes like this. He was known as Iceman, and part of him liked it. At the very least, it covered up the smell of a Kuklinski-stained existence. With stale ethanol breath laced with death, brass knuckles in the middle of the night, backs snapping broom handles. His seething seeped out of his pores, overflowing onto the floor, drowning others. He only knew how to loathe. He only knew how to bathe in the blood he pretended to love. He now asks for a different future, his tattered mask hanging from his decaying face. The serial killer imprint in the mattress in his cell lulls him to sleep where his dreams give him the glimpse of a hell-less existence. Take me forward in space and time where no worlds collide, where I have never mutilated, where betrayal's absence is at its loudest. Security meets him at the gate, asks him to open his bags. His veins run with rage, every inch of his skin drenched in denial. Security's fingers show their indifference to defence mechanisms by tapping the sign. How you respond is entirely up to you. A sudden urge to search inside his own baggage guides his hands to the very bottom of the void, grasping, lifting to his face. It felt like twisted cords of shame. The smell was like generations of infected neurons. Its surface reflected powerlessness into bloodshot eyes. The taste of death lingered on his tongue. Security reads the script in an unwavering tone. How you respond is entirely up to you. The way you interpret the contents of your baggage determines whether you get through.
That's fantastic. I like that. That's really good. So, as someone who writes a lot of serial killer stuff myself, that was amazing.
Great, thank you. There is a underlying message there, and I don't know if it's obvious, but I'll just leave it to the listeners to interpret.
The first rule of writing anything is never ever interpret things yourself. Let the people do it. I mean, my brother used to write songs when he was in bands, and people used to always say, "Oh, what's it about? What's it about?" And he goes, "I can't tell you that."
Yeah.
So, what's the point? It's like, I really don't like those books like Robert Frost on Frost or Bob Dylan on Dylan, those books, because it's not up for the writer to interpret their own work. We just put it, I hate to sound existentialist and postmodern, but it's almost like the death of the writer. That as soon as you write it, it doesn't exist. You don't own it anymore. It's out there. So it's up for the audience to like it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, how many for 40 years people have been arguing what Bohemian Rhapsody is about, and Freddie never told anyone, which was good because it's probably something so most songs that are really cool. I usually write them about the most mundane things.
Yeah.
So it's
and it kind of removes some of the mystery too.
Yeah.
Like, there will be no discussion about anything if the author just says exactly what it's about. So I want to be mysterious.
Oh, Vicky Mealings agrees with us, by the way.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Vicky.
Thanks, Vicky. You're a fan. Yeah. Have to have you on playing one day. She goes, it's not up to the writer to interpret their own work. So true. Thanks, Vicky. Cool. I should do this more often. I don't do the live thing because it's my face that people got to see. So it's like, I can't stand looking at my own face up at times. It's like too much red.
You could shave. There'd be less red.
I know, but someone saw a picture of me the other day from ages ago without beard, and there's no discernible chin. And I look like I'm 18. Well, I was actually like 26.
So it's either total red or no chin.
Yeah, so I can't wait. Yeah, exactly. So you're talking about your book, Shadow.
Yes.
Hold it up so everyone can see it.
Oh, right.
Now that we're live. And where can you buy it from?
Well, there's a link that you posted in the event for this.
Yes.
I can't remember what it is. It's on Blurb. It's available on Blurb. So if listeners want to go into the event on Facebook, they can see the link.
Cool. And how much does it cost?
Well, this is the thing. Because Blurb is a website that is in the US, they charge quite a bit for postage. So I'm not 100% sure how much it would cost. I think it's about $20, $25 all up, including postage.
Cool. I use Lulu. And that's the problem too, because they're based in America too. So to do any copies of it, I have to buy it in bulk, and of course that costs a fortune. So you have to buy to make it worth your while. You have to buy like 20 or 30 copies of it at any one time, and then I think I had copies of it for the same copies I was trying to flog for like 2 years.
Yeah, well, I've got some. So if anyone who sees me around is interested, I always have a copy on me. So
cool.
Yeah, and they'll be $15 if you buy it from me directly.
And how much is it if you buy it online?
Well, around 20-25.
Yeah. I discovered a copy of my book, Blue Electric Dusk. The first thing I ever did with Newman Books, and they're an esoteric, spiritual sort of mythology publisher, and they were trying to branch out into poetry. It didn't work that well because they were very much niche publishing, like doing stuff on Norse gods and Nietzschean philosophy and Kierkegaard, yada yada yada. And I discovered a copy of my book once for $63.
Wow.
And it was an Australian website.
Wow.
It was through Booktopia, I think.
So that's not even including postage.
No, and I was thinking, I don't remember letting them have a copy of that book. So you're going to read something from your book now, please, so we can advertise it as much as possible.
Okay. So here's one. Actually, I want to read the blurb of it.
Yes, please, because it's always interesting getting poets' bios because they're completely insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough when you're in horror collections and stuff like I've done in the States where you have to do 50 words. And say a lot of people say he's a divorced woman who has 3 cats and 4 dogs and lives on the beach, and writing is like her way of therapy. Is like, oh God.
Is that your bio?
No, it's not. Yeah. I've had numerous sex changes, and I keep regenerating, like the doctor. But no, I always put my publishing history down there, which also is a good way of bragging. Yeah, so I've done this.
You do like to brag, don't you?
Oh yeah.
So the reason I want to read my blurb.
It's not bragging; it's publicity, by the way.
The reason I want to read my blurb first is because, well, you'll see why. I'll read it and then I'll read a poem. They're both short. So this is the blurb. Shadow is a collection of poems composed during a period of intense shadow work, the process of exploring the dark and unconscious aspects of the psyche. It examines fear, shame, hatred, anger, isolation, hopelessness, confusion, society, love, and hope. Presented in chronological order, the collection follows a spontaneous and involuntary process that brought much of the author's darkness into her conscious awareness. Its raw, insightful, and sometimes ferocious content generates more questions than answers, culminating in the realization that existence is absurd. So the reason I read that is because I'm about to read you the last poem in the book, which is the culmination, the realisation that existence is absurd. And the poem is called Seconds That Don't Exist. The object I perceive to be round, on a face of perpetual movement, measuring seconds that don't exist, pretending numbers are finite, informs me that my physical body, made up of mostly empty space, lay horizontal on fabric-covered springs excuse me, for at least 28,800 seconds, while the state of my consciousness was altered so much that I experienced multiple alternate realities, one after the other, or were they simultaneous, that were realer than this one at times, and often more sensical. So yeah.
I like that, that's good.
So that was my, I wrote that when I had this realisation. I was actually kind of researching quite a bit of Sartre and existentialism.
That's why I mentioned the author dead thing, because I knew you like Sartre.
Yeah, so. And I just started seeing things from the perspective of that everything is absurd. So that's how I perceived my day. You know, I was looking at the clock and I'm like, well, what the hell is this thing anyway? It's just an object that I perceive to be round, measuring, you know, time doesn't exist, and so it's measuring something that doesn't even exist. Like, it was very, so I thought I'd put it in a poem.
It's always the funniest thing, actually, studying philosophy myself, and you have as well. People always go, oh, so like, what's the meaning of life if you studied philosophy? That's one thing philosophers would never ever touch, because they know existence and the meaning of life is pretty much bullshit anyway. That's why they're always trying to prove the existence or non-existence of existence. So because there's no meaning to life. Because well, it's too abstract. It's too many perspectives. It's too many ideas running around. So it's no system. You can't systematically write about it. Nietzsche probably could have given it a chance. But,
Nietzsche.
Yeah.
God, I'm in love with that man. I swear to God.
Well, I can break your heart. I can give you a very famous Nietzsche quote that feminists love.
Right, go.
When in company of women, one should always bring a whip.
Right.
That's from back of Birth of... Oh, no, Done with All the Proverbs. So not the Birth of Tragedy, but the... anyway, there's lots of just obscene, crazy things that he wrote, not really caring. So,
Yeah,
but I always like his best one was... show me a mediocre man and I'll show you a great artist, and I'll show you a great man and I'll show you a mediocre artist. So,
wait, what was that? Say it again?
Show me a mediocre artist and I'll show you a great man. Show me... And it's reversed. So basically, if you're a great man, you can't be a good artist.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
It's the male writer and male poet and male artist get out of jail free after being bastards to everyone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right. So you messed up automatically.
Yeah. So, don't blame me, I'm a male artist. I'm supposed to be treated like shit.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did I get away with that?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Good. Yeah. That's what feminism is, isn't it? A choice.
See, that's the thing with feminism. Earlier you asked me if I was an existentialist, and I said I don't label myself. Same with feminism. Like, just because I'm female doesn't mean I'm automatically
I know that.
feminist.
I know that.
Because I just don't label myself as anything.
Yeah.
I believe all humans are equal, and that whatever you want to define that as, then that's fine.
In the words of George Orwell, some animals are more equal than others. We're going to play a track now and get off the live because we can't really broadcast. I don't know what the copyright issue would be about playing the track live, through the Facebook Live thing. So
Oh, right, okay.
we can play it through the radio, but I don't think.
Yeah.
So anyone who's following us on the Facebook Live feed, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you later. Bye.